To have passion in life is everything.
What's your Everest?
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
that 200-inch buck?
They just look so impressive when they're wide.
Especially running away.
Welcome to this week's episode of Eastmans Elevated.
It's like a think tank for outdoor activity.
Sounds exactly like my hunting. Just always thinking about it, always trying to evolve it and make it better.
Here's your host, Brian Barney.
Hey, what's up, guys? Got a brand new podcast for you. So this week I have on Andy May. It's the first time I've ever met and talked with Andy. We've interacted a little bit through social media, but what a fantastic guy. We start off talking about our daughters and raising kids and kind of some of the morals and ethics that we're trying to instill and hard work and how to approach that. It was really interesting. And then we get into bow hunting, and Andy's base is hunting whitetails, but he started traveling across the West hunting mule deer and hunting elk, and it's just made for a great conversation. He's a really thought out, a strategic bow hunter. He talks about being able to get it done in short amounts of time, as he's a school teacher and doesn't get a ton of time in the fall. And so, he talks about traveling across the country to hunt for 3 days. But it just made for this great podcast. His heart is in the West and in mule deer like mine is. And so it just made for this great, engaging conversation that I think you guys will really enjoy. I want to thank my sponsors for today's show. I want to thank Matthews Archery. That new Phase 4 is a shooter. I am so impressed by this bow. I think I'm shooting this bow better than I've shot any bow in my career. Man, the thing is just shooting so well. I got such a good tune in it. And that's the thing with Matthews, is it really holds the tune. Like, I can take last year's bow or 2 years ago's bow and shoot it through paper, and the thing is still precisely tuned. Like, it holds that tune. It stands up to all the rugged abuse I give it in the backcountry. I mean, heck, half the time I'm using my front stabilizer as a walking stick on my bow. So I really abuse these things, but it just holds up to all my abuse. The thing is shooting. Matthews is building such forgiving bows. And also, the sound coming out of that Phase 4, it is the quietest bow I've ever shot, which gives me a major advantage on animals not jumping my string, like mule deer, like axis, like antelope. And in fact, it's so quiet that when I was in Australia, nobody knew that I shot that red deer. And so I came back to discuss that red deer. And then he goes, we were talking about it, and I thought they knew I had shot him. And we get 5 minutes into the conversation, and I go, "Oh no, I killed him. I killed that stag. I shot him at 20 yards. He's over there dead. We just got to trail him up." And the guys were so surprised. And same thing with that sandbar. Josh was actually 40 or 50 yards behind me is all. When I snuck in on that sandbar, I shot it. And same thing, I came down and had a conversation, and he didn't know I had shot it. I pulled the same thing on him, 5 minutes into the conversation with, "No, I shot that stag up there," and he didn't even know I had shot it. It's just so quiet, which is such an advantage, so forgiving. I'm just so in love with these Matthews bows, and this Phase 4 is shooting so good for me. So if you're in the market for a new bow, make sure to go check out Matthews and at least shoot it and see if it's a good fit for you. I also want to thank Forever Barnwood. So I just sent some photos over to Jason to Forever Barnwood. I'm so impressed by his products. So I'm using these products through Barney Construction. I used his products for my personal house, and it's absolutely one of a kind. Mine is a Western style home, so it fits really well, but I used his custom doors. I used his base and case trim. I used his beams. I used some of his shiplap for the back of the bar. I used posts for around the fireplace. Just an amazing product. And it's actually new wood. So he's able to match the lot of it, match the colors of it. And it's new wood. And he used this process of impregnating the wood with the finish, which comes out to be this grayish brown look. He's got a couple different finish, 100-year-old look, where It's really indented in the grain, and then he also has like this skip-sawn look, and I use the skip-sawn for my place, but it's absolutely beautiful, one of a kind, great price point, really good mill, like all my trim was straight on it. It's just an absolute superior product, and I'm definitely using it in the houses that I'm doing. The clients that walk through my house absolutely love it. He'll do packages, ship anywhere in the United States. Just a great company. Make sure to go check him out at Forever Barnwood. I also want to thank Stone Glacier. I love this company, Stone Glacier. I love the guys that work for them. They're the real deal. They're out there working hard on public lands, draw tags, just like we are, and they're out grinding. I mean, I've had Andrew on the podcast. I've had Zach on the podcast, both super solid guys that I want to get back on. I really like Lyle in there, Kurt, and I'm lining up a podcast with those guys now to get them on, but just superior products. And they're built like for me, like ultra lightweight. So I'm using their sleep system, so I'm using their tents. They have a bomb-proof 1-man and now 2-man tent that's a 4-season tent that'll withstand anything you throw at it. It's my bomb-proof shelter if I'm going to go into nasty weather. I also really like their bivy tent. It's a Sky Air Ultra. And this thing... It's a modular system, so I have the floor in it, and then I also have the vestibule, and then the tent itself, which is a single-wall design. But the thing weighs 1.5 pounds for a bivy tent, and I use this on all my early season, even into mid-season. It's just a bomb-proof shelter that I can take that's super lightweight that I can set up anywhere. It's a great system. And then also using their sleeping bags. I'm running their 15 degree, which it actually keeps warm to 15 degrees. They also have a 0 degree, and then they've got a 30-degree blanket. 30-degree blanket, for me, it's fairly open and something I only use in the early season, so I'll use it for early season hunts like August hunts and things of that nature. But once it gets into September, I'm using that 15-degree bag, but just a great product. And I really like those guys and all their products they offer, so make sure to go check them out over at Stone Glacier. I also want to thank Black Ovis. Black Ovis is an internet retail shop that has absolutely everything you need for your next hunt. They carry all the top name brands as well as their own brand. They have a knowledgeable staff that are also hunters that can answer your questions, and you can save some money too. I've got a promo code for it where you can save 10%. Just put in the code ELEVATED10 and you'll save 10% off your first order there. So thanks to Black Ovis for their support of the podcast. I also want to thank Camo Fire. Camo Fire is an app where you get new hunting deals that come up every 24 hours. You can save a pile of money on overstock gear, and they're all top name brands. So I know my buddies watch this site, pick up some great deals, and sometimes show up to camp matching in some of their big savings gear that they were able to get. But make sure to go check them out. They're over at Camo Fire. Over at Eastmans, I'm planning a trip over there. I'm going to shoot over there next Monday and Tuesday. We've got some exciting things in the works. So I have been recording with Dan Picard, and we are getting ready to launch a spin-off podcast where it's Dan Picard and I, where we go further in depth about bow hunting. It's me and Dan just have such good chemistry and a connection, and I just love having him on the podcast that I thought we'd start a podcast with just Dan and I. Right now, I'm not sure if we're going to plan it every week or every other week, but I've got a few of them recorded that are just great recordings, and so we're getting ready for the launch of this. I'll make sure to let you guys know when it launches, but if you like this podcast, you'll like that podcast as well. So really excited about that. We had the mule deer course I also worked really hard on with Dan Picard and Guy Eastman. I told you guys it's like everything I've learned about traveling and hunting mule deer the last 25 years. It's like every different habitat, it's different seasons, it's different weapons, it's in-depth stalking, it's in-depth glassing and finding deer. I really think it furthers your learning curve hunting mule deer by years just by going through this 2-week course. It's all done through the internet. It's all done through a video format where there's over 100 videos that you watch, and it walks you through each chapter. And again, everything I know about hunting mule deer. So it's a real asset. I wish I had this when I was younger. I definitely would have cut my learning curve by a handful of years. So go check that out. We have a promo code for it. Brian MDC. That'll save you 10% on the mule deer course. Also, we have our Eastman's Tag Hub. If you put in the promo code Brian, that'll get you a free subscription to Mountain Tough Fitness, which I really enjoy doing. They have great workouts. They have workouts that you can do with no gear, minimal gear, or a full gym setup. So you get that with Eastman's Tag Hub, which I'm using a ton right now as I'm applying for all these Western states. That promo code is Brian. Put that in, and that'll get you that free subscription. And as far as the magazines go, just finished up a Next Level Elk Hunting article that'll go in the next Eastman's Hunting Journal. You can check that out. I had a bear one that comes out here in the next couple days. For the Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal, just everything I've learned about hunting bears, as bears can be a bit of a black magic. So really proud at how that one came out. The magazines, we do 6 issues a year of the Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal and 6 issues of the Eastman's Hunting Journal. I really think it's one of the best reads out there. Our subscriber stories, our pro staff articles, gear reviews, tons of stuff in those magazines, and so check that out for a subscription. We also, we've got Beyond the Grid, and which is you can watch on YouTube. Just search Eastman's Hunting TV on YouTube. That'll pop out, and got a few hunts on there and a few more coming up that I'm really proud of. And man, that's about it. Gonna run over to that Eastman's office and get some work done here, and just trying to line up some really good guests for you for this summer leading into hunting season. And I think I've got that done. But it all starts today. This is a great one with Andy May. Such a great in-depth conversation. I really appreciate him taking the time and sharing all this knowledge that he's gained about chasing mule deer out west, stalking mule deer, mindset. Just a really fun conversation. I'm your host, Brian Barney, Eastman's Elevated. Here we go.
Good, man. You're up early, huh?
Yeah, up early and rolling here. Yeah, 2 hours difference on the time, huh?
Yeah. I just I'm an early riser too. I already went to the gym, got a few shots in with the bow, and this is perfect for me because I get up about 5:30. That's about as long as I can sleep in.
Yeah, that's like me too. Good. Well, you're winning this morning. Already getting your workout and bow shot, and then daughter dropped off, you said. So yeah, it's I'm productive in the mornings as well. It's like my best time of day.
Yeah, I actually I was supposed to have to drop my daughter off, and I was a little worried about the time, but I ended up getting that handled, so I didn't have to do that. But I'm on my spring break right now, so I always get up before work and go to the gym. That's just kind of my routine, but I'm off this week. Couldn't travel or anything. So, just been doing a lot of scouting, a lot of shooting my bow. My daughter's in basketball and stuff. So we've been doing a lot of workouts, things like that, but it's been fun.
It's so good when we can include our daughters in those workouts, isn't it? And spend that quality time and go through challenges with them and suffer a bit. Like, it's great. I love sharing that with my daughters.
Yeah, it's the best. I mean, that's probably what I get the most joy out of, to be honest with you, and just trying to teach her, because her passion right now is basketball, and I'm just trying to teach her about hard work and dedication and discipline. And she, she's like a lot of kids these days that tend to be glued to their phones and don't have a lot of struggle in their life. So I'm really trying to teach her that stuff, but it's hard in this day and age. It's really hard. But I'm hoping, just by just kind of being an example. I mean, she's really inspired me to be just a better person and more of a leader and a good example. So I just want her to have those experiences that have carried her, through life. It's so easy on these kids these days. You want to see them struggle with some adversity and some difficulties and make some tough choices. But it's it's hard these days.
Man, likewise. Yeah, I feel your struggle. I'm the same way as a dad, trying so hard to teach these qualities and to be able to teach my daughter how to live a meaningful, fulfilling life. And her love isn't my love. Just like you stated, your daughter in basketball, like she loves to get outdoors with me, and she'll go hunting with me or go fishing, and she really looks forward to these hunting adventures every year. And so that's like a great time for me to be able to teach those lessons. But it is about teaching these lessons year round, and these kids, they're not born with mental toughness. Nobody is. Nobody's born with these attributes. They're earned. And so as they're growing up, you have to teach these lessons. And same with my daughters. The devices are a big part of normal life. And I got like an appreciation the other day. Like my college daughter was home, and I had to get a tax form for school that I had to get turned in, and just watching her navigate the internet, like I'm pretty handy and I work with it every single day, and I constantly have to figure things out. And I just watch her on that thing, and she's better than I'll ever be as far as just the way she moves through the internet and loads things up, the way she finds information. Like, it was amazing just to watch her navigate on there. Like, they pick it up so quick, it's second nature to them. But man, I'm with you. It's that same struggle of trying to teach these lessons and trying to teach behavior and how to be a leader, and that's the best way to do it, I think, is like through every day, through those workouts that you're trying to do. Like, I got to convince my daughters to do them with me as well. And then these sports, like, my kids have just fallen in love with sports. So my youngest daughter's in softball right now, just finished up basketball, had volleyball before that, and now she's getting into high school sports. She's a freshman. And so there's more dedication, there's more work there, and there's also struggle there. There's challenge trying to be a starter on your team. There's challenge of really high pressure situations, like her playing against the varsity, with all her friends watching, and and making mistakes too, But yeah, I think that's the way to go about it, and it's such a big responsibility raising these kids, and you just want them to live a happy, fulfilling life. And so it is like a combination of setting an example and showing them to chase their passions, having these discussions with them, and then having these tools like sports and things to be able to teach these lessons. But I struggle with it too. It's tough to be a dad in today's day and age.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you said it, man. It is. It brings me the most joy and sometimes the most frustration. It's like, you see your kids, they have these talents and stuff, and more talent than I ever had in sports. And it's just like, you want so bad for them to like maximize that talent and have like this extreme like hard work and dedication and discipline that, we probably for sure didn't have at that age. It's like, it's come later in life when you see, results of something you're passionate about, and the more work you put in, the more you get out of it. It's like, we want them to understand that and know that now while they're young and they got all these opportunities in front of them. And it's just it's a constant battle. I get real frustrated, and I have to remind myself sometimes, like, don't be so intense, don't be so intense with her, and just let her be a kid. And if she really, really loves this, if she's really passionate about it, she's going to find a way to put in the work. I can't talk her into, going to work out and putting in all this extra work constantly, because that won't be sustainable. So my job is to let her know, the path, kind of show her the path, encourage her, and support her. But if it's a huge struggle and it's a fight and it's just, my daughter loves to bass fish. I love to fish. So, I mean, if she doesn't have a career in basketball, I mean, shoot, we could be out fishing all the time and I'd be just as happy, So I gotta bring things back into perspective sometimes. But Yeah, it's fun, man. It's fun and frustrating.
Yeah, that's described perfectly. It is. Yeah, you want them to have these traits, but it's right. At least for me, it's been 40 years to get to where I'm at. And man, if I could take my attitude and knowledge and go back to being 16, oh my gosh, would I slay the world? Not that I haven't made a great life for myself, but you just don't have it at 16, and at least us as guys, we're like 2-point bucks, during the rut. We don't really know what's important or which way to turn. And, I learned that hard work and discipline at a young age, but, I definitely didn't practice it as well as I practice it now. And so, yeah, we just want to implement that in our kids. And it's that same thing. It's like, man, I can see the path. I can see, if my daughter, she loves basketball with all her heart, and it's like, well, if you really want to be good at it, it's like, give her the tools, and then she has to make the decision. It's like, well, you should really be trail running with me every day. Like, your advantage on the court is that you're really quick and you don't get tired. Like, let's maximize that. Or, we should be shooting, every day or every weekend, that's what we should be doing. But she's got all these irons in the fire trying to figure out what it is she does love. And so, now she's into softball practice, and that's 6 days a week, and she has her schooling, and I'm really proud of my girls of what they've accomplished and just their dedication to their schoolwork and creating the life they want to live. And, us in our household, that's like one of the most important things. And they definitely check those boxes. I never have to check in on their homework, their schoolwork, their grades. They're always getting that done, but on top of that, yeah, you just, you see this opportunity in front of them, this opportunity, when you're young, is that you can create any life you want to live. And really, this is a lesson for us guys too, is even at 30, even at 40, we're still young and still have a lot of life, and we can create any life we want to live. We just have to work towards it, and so as much as it is like a lesson for these girls, it's also like living our life to the fullest and chasing our passions and dreams and letting them see this hard work and letting them see it come to fruition. Like, I think those are great lessons too, but it's definitely a struggle, man. They didn't make a handbook for it. And even if there was a handbook, it'd be outdated about every 10 years as things change. And there's no handbook for the internet, nowadays, but, they're good kids and they're going to make a good life for themselves. Like, we just have to keep guiding them in the right direction, and really just love and encouragement and being present with them, being able to sit down and have these in-depth conversations. Like, I think that's all like really important to being a good dad.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You're spot on. Yeah, I that's one thing I picked up from you, listening to your podcast and stuff. I can sense that you're, a real good and passionate father. And, I have a lot of respect for that. That's my number one priority. I mean, hunting is a very, very distant second to being a good dad and a present dad, and just trying to be a good leader. But there's a lot of guys out there that, have those switched, that really do. And, no judgment, but I have a lot of respect for you, because I've heard you mention it a lot. You hunt at a high level, you parent at a higher level. So good for you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, and likewise, man. Yeah, you can definitely see like following you and where your priorities lie, and it's tough. It's a balance in life. Even us as being dads is like you can't stop everything you love either, drop everything to be a dad, because you can't really enrich your kids' lives, unless you're happy yourself. And
Yeah.
At least for me, like, it is family is number one without a doubt. I drop everything for family at any point in time. But, I also have to chase my dreams and be happy in my own skin and in my own life and have this passion and this love for something. And then that makes me want to be a better father. It makes me want to enrich their lives. And so It's like this tough balance. Like you can't just focus on one thing. Like you also have to focus on your personal happiness, chasing your own passion, setting an example there, and then you can enrich their lives and encourage them that, hey, if you have passion for something like basketball, like you can put more effort in than these other girls. If you really want to be good at basketball, like there is a path for that, and it's through hard work and it's through discipline and these girls at your level aren't putting in the work that you're putting in, and you're just only given what you're given genetically, and then it comes down to how hard you want to work. And so it's a balance with life, right? And you don't want to get too upside down one way, and that goes for you don't want to if I work too much, and work creates this lifestyle for my family. It creates money, which creates opportunities, things that we can go do. But in that same breath, when I start working too much and start doing these 12 or 14-hour days, and I don't get a break, and I don't get to the river, or I don't get to the mountains, I start slipping into depression myself. And if I'm depressed, like I can't be present with my daughter, and I'm not having these honest conversations like I should. So, man, life is just all about balance between work and family, and then this passion that we have for the outdoors and hunting. And it's tough to find that balance all the time, it seems.
Yeah, man, you're right. It is a balance. And yeah, I mean, that's an awesome point. Like I hope my daughter sees me, pretty much daily trying to do something, to be a better bow hunter, whether I'm on the computer for 5 minutes and I'm, doing some map scouting, or I'm shooting my bow. It might be 3 arrows, because we got all this stuff to do, or she might see me out there for an hour or two, but doing something every day towards my passion, and then just kind of tempering it back when we got family priorities, and when there's more free time, I'm really hitting it hard. I hope my goal is that she sees that and recognizes that and can use that later in life, and whatever she chooses, whether it's her work career to get further up the ladder, or if it's in athletics or a musical instrument. I always told her, I was like, I love watching you play basketball. I love basketball. I played basketball. It's probably my favorite game to watch. But if you were passionate about playing the piano, I would be just as proud. If you were working hard on those keys and getting trained and working at it, and learning all these different notes and songs and stuff, I would just be so happy just to see you doing something you love. So I'm hoping that I'm instilling that in her. And yeah, it's hard sometimes. I've been in a really tough, I think, tough career wise when it comes to hunting, because I work at a school. So I don't get the vacation time off at all. We get 2 personal days a year. My vacations are set in stone, like, spring break, Christmas break, summer. I work through the summer, but those are my times off, and it doesn't really mesh up well, for bow hunting seasons. I'm pretty much, used to being a weekend warrior. So yeah, it's hard for me, because my heart wants these big adventures, and I've been very fortunate. I've been able to hunt a lot of different places. But it's always on a very time constraint, and I've never been able to, very rarely just go and, experience like a 10 to 12 day hunt. Everything has been kind of get there, get it done quick, get home, get back to work. And that's just kind of been my style, or what I've had to deal with. So yeah, it's hard, man, because I'm always scratching and clawing for more of that time in the woods. And, you're working that job, you're scratching and clawing for that. You're trying to, be a leader for your family, and be there present for, your wife and daughter and your kids and all that stuff. It's a tough task, to say the least, but, I try to do the best I can do, and I feel like I'm definitely doing a better job of it now than I used to. If I'm being honest, when I was younger, like, in my 20s, early 30s. I had some failed relationships, for sure, because, I put hunting first, 100%. And, thought I was doing a good job of balancing it. But now when I look back, I really wasn't. I was putting more on the hunting plate and not enough on the relationship stuff. And, it cost me some relationships, but I learned and I grew, and I feel like I'm in a much better spot, a more mature spot. And I've honed some of those hunting skills over the years from all that dedication and putting it first. It's allowed me to develop some skills where now, yes, I can go travel and get to some of these other states, even if it's only for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and, get on some decent animals and have some success. So, I mean, there's been some benefit from it, but I'm in a much better spot now, I think, with balancing the whole thing.
Yeah, I've definitely got out of balance in my life at different times. And like you, I was so driven when I was young. It was absolutely everything to me. And it took care of family, and I found the balance some way, somehow, and survived through it, and everybody else did too. And but I've also got out of balance with work or with these personal houses or other things there. And so it is like you almost have to get out of balance to make the realization that you're out of balance and that things aren't quite correct, or that you're not happy in the state that you're at, and then you make adjustments from there. But I do think, like, on the hunting side of things, I love what you said about, like, working at your craft and, like, working at your hunting skill set, like putting this time in and this dedication to it. You're building this hunting skill set, and really that's what it's about. And it's not built in one day, 1 week, 1 year. This is like a lifetime of dedication of absorbing these different places, different species, different challenges, weather and things, taking it all in, and then we become pretty proficient hunters and pretty good at our craft at showing up and giving ourselves a good chance at success and good chance at encounters and stalks. And really it's that hunting skill set and that love for it that gives us a good chance. But yeah, I think we're all at different points in our journey, and I think it's tough for guys to realize they don't see all the work beforehand. Like, now I have a social media, and, when I harvest things, like, there's a lot of eyes on me. And so when I harvest an animal, it's like, man, Brian killed a nice animal, but what they don't see is the 20 years before of me running every single day, or just like you today, waking up at 5 o'clock, getting my run in so I can get my kids to school, so I can get to work, so I can then be there at night with my family. And so nobody sees all this work behind the scenes, all the hours. Instead of watching TV, I'm stretching and I'm on my OnX or I'm on my Google Earth and I'm thinking about a hunt I'm going to do and how I'm going to attack it. And it's like these hunting skill sets of having this skill and then also spending the time and effort to learn these different places. It comes to fruition once we're on a hunt. And guys don't see a lot of that behind the scenes, but that's what goes into making a good bow hunter, is all that work behind the scenes, all those miles and workouts and all those arrows and tinkering with the bow. And like, I just set up a bow, and a lot of guys, even really good shooters will set up a hunting bow and say, well, it's good enough. And it's this bow, I've already tore this thing down 2 or 3 times, and it's a brand new bow that I had tuned, with 3 arrows out of it. But there's just a lot of tinkering that goes on, that setting up a bow is a process for me to make sure that I have trust in it. It's absolutely dialed, and I like doing it as well. And so, I may have everything set up, and like I caught a tip the other day about like knocking points being too tight on the serving and robbing speed away from the arrow. I started looking at my nocks, and man, they're a little tight on there. So instead I tear down the whole setup, reserve my bow, refine my center shot, retune, and go back out of shooting. And maybe I only gain a few feet per second, but that arrow is coming off that string cleaner, and it's also coming off more forgiving for the paper tune as well, or for the tune of that bow, where it's not sticking to the string. And those little tiny moves like that they make a difference in the end, you know. So we do, as we improve our skill set, we also get good in a short amount of time. And your duration of your 3, 4, 5 day hunts that you're talking about, we are really efficient in that amount of time where we can just go so hard and put so much effort in that I find a lot of times, like, I love to have the time and to be able to be present in the moment and really enjoy. Like, I love a 7-day hunt or a 10-day hunt. I live for those hunts. But in that same breath, I'm almost more efficient in the 3, 4, 5-day hunts, or doing 2 of those and coming back and checking in with the family, than I am one big go, you know?
Yeah, man. It's so funny listening to you talk, because I felt this way for years listening to you, and I was just like, the way you talk about bow hunting and your preparation and how passionate you are about it, it's like, it's almost like hearing myself talk, because I look at it and feel the same exact way. I mean, we're right there together with how we kind of work through this whole process, and how detailed we are. Touching back on like your path, all those years of starting off when you were like such a go-getter, and maybe you were getting a lot of your animals killed, through just persistence and grind, and until that one lucky opportunity comes. I was the same way. I used to hunt, because I work at a school. I get out at 3:30. So hunting around here in Michigan, I was able to hunt most evenings, and then on the weekends is when I would get my morning hunts in. So it was no shortage of hunting time, at least locally. But I would hunt darn near every day of the season, and I'd come away with like one good buck, and it's like just grinding all those days. And it's just, I killed them more out of just stubbornness and persistence. But doing that for years, you start to learn, you start to make these mistakes, and then you eliminate that mistake. And then the next time you do it a little better, or you pick up on these tendencies of what these deer do, or where they like to travel, or where they live in daylight. And it's like you're trying these little stabs and these things that aren't working, but what you're doing is you're just developing this like internal instinct, and it's like, I've always been the type to just be on the more aggressive side. I feel like when you're on that aggressive side and you're willing to try new things, you're kind of like always pushing your limit. And if you're more of a conservative hunter, where like maybe you sit back and, I don't want to go in there and spook anything. Yeah, that's a safe way to play. Maybe you're preserving an area or whatever. But I think when you're coming up, like, because you're not pushing the limit, you don't know what your limits are, so you're sitting back, you're losing opportunity of making those mistakes and improving as a bow hunter. So I've always had that more, what's the worst going to happen? I'm going to go in there and just try to make it happen. And yeah, I blow the deer out. But now I know, like, okay, if I would have done this, I would have got in on that deer. I would have got set up, and he would have never known I was there. I pushed a little too far. And when I see that come across that scenario next time, I know, like, my instincts will kick in. It's like, no, this is good right here. I don't want to go in any further. He doesn't know I'm here. I'm within that red zone. He's going to get up from his bed and he's going to move in daylight. He has no clue I'm here. So it's like, what over time, what's happened is, what took me an entire season to kill, one good buck, then it slowly started transitioning into killing 2 good bucks, in that whole season, and then, you look fast forward 10, 15 years down the road, you got a kid, and all of a sudden you can hunt half as much. But you developed those skills, you made those mistakes, and all these instincts have like developed, and you don't even realize that you're becoming a better bow hunter. And now I'm killing 2 bucks hunting half the season. It's just like, boom, you're becoming more efficient. And then you're paying attention to, your shooting, you're working on your shooting, so that when you do get that opportunity, you don't screw it up, and you're still pushing the limits, developing those instincts and removing those mistakes. And, next thing you know, you're hunting 20 days a year because your daughter's in sports, you're killing 3 or 4 bucks, and all of a sudden you become this like really efficient bow hunter, without even really realizing it. It's just because of that level of dedication and discipline. That's been my path, and that's my hunting season now. I hunt the least I've ever hunted now. And it probably will be that way until my daughter gets out of high school. She's got, finished up her 8th grade year and then the rest of high school. But I've been extremely efficient. Not only around home, I've hunted 18 different states. So it does not scare me one bit to drive 18 hours to Wyoming to hunt 3 days. I've done it. I've flown to Nevada to hunt for, 5, 6, 7 days. I've been to Nebraska and the Dakotas to hunt 2 days. Last year I drove 19 hours to hunt South Dakota. I had 2 days to hunt, and it's because I have the confidence that I can go there, get on a decent animal, and make the shot count, because I've been doing this all these years and putting myself in those positions. If I had been scared to, travel, and just like, there's not enough time to go to Illinois because I only have 2 days to hunt, well, then I would have never experienced that. I would have never even put myself in that situation. And because I was willing to do that and not being afraid to fail, like, I started doing that. Like, hey, I can get on these animals, and maybe I don't tag out every time, but like, I'm having a good hunt. And, to your point too, you said you feel more efficient on those shorter hunts sometimes. I fully believe that, because that has been what I've been able to give into a hunt as far as time has been those, that 2 to 4 day hunt is pretty much my standard. Occasionally I can stretch it out an extra day, but that 2 to 4 day, when you put yourself in a hunt like that over and over and over, you have a different mindset. You realize that you're on a bit of a time crunch. You're fully zoned in. You're fully focused. From the second you cross that state line, you're in hunt mode. You're completely committed. Everything else is blocked out. I mean, I'm not taking naps. I'm not going back to the hotel for lunch. I'm not, doing any of that stuff. It's complete and utter focus on the task at hand. And you start to become more efficient because you have this little time constraint, and maybe you're a little more aggressive than you would be if you had 10 or 12 days, but you have that confidence to be more aggressive because that's the way I've been doing it for 25 years now. I've always had that aggressive approach, and I've been able to fine tune those mistakes. What's too aggressive, what's not aggressive enough, and kind of fine tune that. And I have a really good feel for that, I think, for the most part. I still make mistakes, but I'm able to go on those hunts and be aggressive just enough to get me in the game, and a lot of times get me an opportunity, at a good buck that I'm happy with. So, yeah, I mean, I've asked guys, I've talked to guys, most guys wouldn't even go 4 or 5 hours if they only had 2 days to hunt. I mean, I've done that plus, times 3 in some cases with only just a couple of days to hunt. But I'm an Eastern guy with limited time, and I am 100% in love with the West, man. I mean, it has my heart. It has since, 8 years ago when I first started going, and I'll do anything, to get out there multiple times a year. And it's just the way it is. And if I had never done that, I would have never have the confidence to go and have a short hunt like that and have success.
And that's very well said. There's a bunch of good points in there, Andy. Yeah, just it's so fun to have these in-depth conversations with guys that have put in the time and the effort. You learn so many great lessons throughout it, and I find so many similarities. And you're in Michigan and I'm in Montana, and our paths are so similar and our way of thinking is so similar. Like, we almost arrive at the same point on a lot of this. I really like building your hunting style. Like, I'm the same way. So aggressive, like overly aggressive in my younger years, and especially out west. Like, I'd go to the end of the earth just to get a stalk on an animal with the wind wrong, and you do make mistakes and you blow animals out. But I just love the way you talk about it, how that's like learning, and you're learning your boundaries, or learning how far you can push your aggressiveness. And as I get older and I get more seasoned, I still have that aggressiveness, go for it, give myself a chance attitude. But it's like I'm able to splash in more patience, and I'm able, you said it. You said you're able to read the animals, you're able to read the situations and know how far you can push it. Like, you start to learn what you can get away with and what you can't. You start to learn what is reckless and what's aggressive. You start to learn, like, oh, I can't push this scenario any further, or I'm going to get busted and it's going to blow it up, because I've already done that 100 times. Like, I've learned my lesson there. So I love that, like trying to like be aggressive, give yourself a chance, put in the miles, give yourself a stalk, like, and go in there and mess it up. And you brought it to my attention that's kind of made me the hunter that I am, is being able to find what I can get away with and what I can't. And now, like, that I have this experience, and I'm able to, it seems like the more patience I develop now, and it's not patience of sitting around waiting 4 days for a stock, but it's this patience of knowing when it's right and when it's not, and knowing just what I can get away with and what I can't. I start to learn these boundaries of how far I can push my aggressiveness and give myself a chance without blowing the whole thing up. And it's still, it's like easy to sit back and make excuses why it's not going to work. It's like tougher to like have this aggressiveness and want to go make a play the moment you see just the sliver of opportunity, or you see this chance where you can go get into an animal. Or sometimes it's just like, man, I just got to get over there and then see what the conditions are over there. And maybe I get over there and the wind isn't right, or I can't get on them. But at least I put myself into striking zone to be able to make that decision, and I'm not making that call, 2 miles away on a vantage point without crossing that draw. Like, I always want to make sure that I'm giving myself a chance, but then it's also like I have to curve my enthusiasm sometimes, or I have to develop this patience to be able to know when it's right or wrong. Otherwise, I'll just go and blow up every animal on the mountainside and blow every opportunity that I have. And so it is like finding this fine balance, but I still have that aggressive, like, send it attitude at all times. And that's been what's harvested a lot of my animals. But you do get better at, like, reading the woods, reading the scenario, adapting to the situation you've been given. So, man, I just loved hearing you talk about that. It brought things like to the forefront of my mind that I'm doing as well.
Yeah. And I don't want, young hunters to think that when I say being aggressive means, as soon as you see a target animal, you're going in for the stalk each and every time. It's not that. It's just having that aggressive approach of, I guess, being persistent, being aggressive in working country, but knowing when to slow down. And if you do see an opportunity, that you think, like, for me anyway, there, I came across some opportunities where, man, that's going to be really challenging. But if I do this and this perfect, I think I can get it done. So me, with my type of mindset is like, I want to try that because I can see the difficulty in it. I can see that that's hard. I can see that only the most skilled hunter, the guy that's super focused and does everything right could get in there. And I want that challenge, and I've put myself in those situations and failed, and I've put myself in those situations and done it right. But that's that aggressive, maybe it doesn't have to be absolutely slam dunk perfect, but just give me a little sliver. Give me a little sliver, and I want to try it because even if I fail, I get something out of it. I've gained and I've become a better hunter, even though I don't get to take that animal home. And I've really been able to kind of be real good about, I think anyway, with my limited experience in the West, knowing, kind of when to go for that and when to not. There's been times where I just don't see any type of way in there. Maybe the conditions are too quiet. Maybe the wind's bad. maybe just where he's located. I just don't think I can get anywhere around there within bow range. And I might choose to wait, maybe wait till he moves off into a better position, come back the next day and trying to find him. Or maybe I try to anticipate where I think he's going to go and get in front of him and kind of do more of like an ambush type thing. Or maybe I can get somewhere where I can make a maneuver if he just moves a little bit on. So that aggressiveness doesn't mean doesn't mean rammy, like you're ramming these animals out of the country, but you do have to push the limits a little so that you know what your limits are. There might be a guy out there that has the skill, he has the focus, he has the shooting ability, he has the stalking ability, he has the ability to be really sneaky and really quiet and slow things down and move with the terrain and with the shadows and get in on animals that maybe you and I couldn't get in on. He might have that ability, but he might be too scared to even try it and to push those limits, and he never gets there. So I always encourage those younger guys. I get a lot of Instagram messages of guys I can tell were just like me, like in their 20s. And they're like, what would you do? What would you do here? What would you do there? And I always say, I was like, man, go for it. Be aggressive, be willing to make the mistake, try to be present, try to be focused. Don't be rammy, but be aggressive and go for it. You got to push those limits so you know what your limits are. You got to make those mistakes to develop into a better hunter. And if you always play back, if you always play conservative, you always play it safe, you're going to miss a lot of opportunities. You're going to miss a lot of opportunities for growth, much less shots on animals. So yeah, it is. It's kind of knowing when to push and when to pull back and when to sit and wait. Even on the whitetail side, I'm a very, very aggressive whitetail hunter, but I'm aggressive when the time is right. I dive in when the time is right. I kind of hunt. Sometimes I do things that are a little unorthodox, just hunting from the ground or getting up in a tree, just getting my feet just off the leaves enough, like on a little platform or something, just so there's no noise, and just in a saddle, hiding behind the tree, so I can just lean out a little and make that shot. But I can get in really tight to these animals where a lot of guys are failing because they're not taking into account how noisy they are, getting to the stand, walking through those leaves, or where they can be seen from, on the terrain. Or they get to their tree and they're climbing up this ladder, and yeah, maybe the spot's good. Maybe they did a great job of scouting and picking out a good ambush location, but they didn't take into account what that buck can see from his bed 100 yards away. And here they are climbing 20, 22, 25 feet up into the tree, and this buck is on a knob across the drainage, and he's like looking at you ascend the tree. You just blew the hunt. Where if I come in from a low spot or something, and I'm creeping in like I'm stalking on an antelope, that's 30 yards away or something, just trying to be so quiet. And I get to the base of that tree and I'm behind it. I never silhouette myself. I don't ever climb higher where that deer can see. I put my little platform on, I get in that saddle, and I'm using the tree as cover. All of a sudden now I'm in that same location, but because I did my scouting, I knew kind of where the deer were bedding, what they could see from my scouting. Now I'm in a position to kill that deer. So you do have to push and be aggressive in those younger years to really grow and I think to maximize your growth. And if you don't do that, you're going to have a slower track to becoming a better bow hunter. If you are aggressive, be willing to make those mistakes, but correct those mistakes and learn from them. You got to be able to do that. Then you're on the fast track. You're on the fast track to becoming a seasoned bow hunter. And that's what I always encourage guys to do. Don't play it safe unless your instincts tell you to. Trust your instincts. If your instincts say slow down, maybe this is far enough, go with that. Trust your instinct. And you might find that you're in the perfect spot. You might find that you were 50 yards off. You should have went 50 yards further and set up. Well, you just learned. So, and then those instincts they recalculate, they recalibrate, and you can use that on the next situation or the next hunt where you encounter a situation with those same type of things going on. So it's a cool thing, man. But yeah, you have to make those mistakes to grow. You have to be willing to be aggressive and push, to really figure out what your limits are and to keep pushing those limits. I always tell my daughter, I was like, because she has a habit of, when we work out in basketball, her and I, like, we go to the gym and I put her through a little workout or whatever. I can tell she's always giving me like 70%, right? So I always tell her, I was like, this is where you're at right now. This level right here is your limit. And when you give me 70%, you're going to here. You're going to here. Every time we go out and practice, you're going here. You're giving me 70%. This line never changes. But when you give me 100% and you push as hard as you can, you keep hitting this line and it keeps going up, keeps going up, keeps going up a little more. And I try to show her that, physically show her that, so it makes sense to her. And that's the way I feel about hunting. You gotta test those skills and you gotta push those limits, because you might have some incredible bow hunting skills that you haven't even tapped into yet. So you just got to have that mindset and go for it, I think.
Yeah. I love your mindset on it, man. It's I love being like that creative thinking is rewarded. I love you sneaking into that spot with that buck and not climbing high where he can see you, and making sure that you're not making a bunch of noise getting in there. Like, us as humans, sometimes we don't realize the vibrations that we put out in the woods when we get out there. Like, we're real human, and when we're making this noise, we're alerting all the animals who are there. So I think that's like that creative thinking, or that it's like tactful, and you're really trying to come up with a strategy to kill that animal, and it is listening to your instincts. And you're right, like, the growth comes from the work we put in, definitely, but experience is the best teacher. It's like being out there in the woods and trying things and getting busted and having things go right. It's like the best teacher to help shape our instincts. And and it's also about these stocks. It's like having the mindset of no shortcuts, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get close to this animal. Like there's some huge benefits of that. It's almost like a mind switch. Like you might see this animal a ways off, and you're going to go for a stalk, and you've got 1,000 feet to drop and 1,000 feet to gain and a few miles to put on. And so you're moving this fast pace, but there's almost like this switch that has to flip to, now I'm in hunting mode. Now I'm getting close. Now I've got to start to move slow, and no shortcuts. If I think that buck can see me walking through this meadow, he's probably going to see me. I need to go the long way around, even though it's going to take me another half an hour. Or, the wind is really blowing here, as I get down in this canyon. Man, it's really coming northwest. Like, I need to adjust here and adjust my approach to this animal to make sure that I have the wind right. And so, it's like making the difficult decision a lot. Like, us as humans, we have this. We always want to take the easiest path or the easiest way. It's almost like human nature. But once you get on a stalk, or once you get a chance, it is trying to do everything in your power to put yourself in range. And this is like a really difficult game that we play. Like, these animals' instincts are honed so sharp that we're not going to win every battle, even if we hone our instincts to the level that we're at. Like me and you have been doing it for 20 plus years. Like, you get pretty proficient and you have a pretty good success rate, but I'm still not going to win every battle. Like, even making the best decisions that I can, making no shortcuts, mixing my aggressiveness with my patience, like, those bucks are still going to win sometimes. Those bulls are still going to win. But I've learned too that to not blow these scenarios up, to really to keep, like, the element of surprise is so big to me. Like, not letting these animals know that I'm hunting them, And this ability to be able to do this, to keep this element of surprise and have that be the most important thing to me, it allows me to make moves to get in close to take what the animals will give me, but I don't push too hard where I blow them out of country. And what I find a lot of times is this is where this patience really comes in, is this patience of waiting for the right moment to then close this last 100 yards to try to kill this animal. My patience to wait for that buck to make the last move and stand up and walk out, instead of me trying to angle in there and get an arrow in him in his bed and exposing myself and blowing up the scenario, or being okay, like being in a herd of elk and letting this 6-point bull walk over the next rise and not forcing this issue because I know I don't have a move to make. But after he goes over that rise, then I readjust and I move to that rise. And I keep playing the game and keeping this element of surprise. And through doing that, I spend more time with these animals, and eventually these animals will make a mistake, or they'll put themselves in a bad position. Or maybe I don't kill this buck on my first go, and he walks out of my life, or it starts getting dark, or I'm not in bow range, doesn't give me the shot, and so I'll back out of there. But that buck doesn't know I'm hunting him. Now I get another chance tomorrow. And the more chances you give me, like, eventually I'm going to get it done. And so I think, like, not taking any shortcuts, really slowing down, and just trying, like, over anything, keeping this element of surprise. I see new bow hunters, how they get in close and then they want to draw their bow and walk around the tree, or draw their bow and walk over the edge. And I'm the opposite. I move like the hands of the clock, and I want to get myself into a good position. And once that deer's head's down and he's not looking at me and he gives me the right angle, I'm going to draw my bow so slow, and then I'm going to settle my pin and execute my shot. But it's these little tiny moves and really keeping the element of surprise in the forefront of your mind, and not blowing up these animals or let them know that you're hunting them. And sometimes situations blow up and that buck catches me, and I have one chance to draw right now, and I'm going to try to take that chance and try to shoot that buck. But for the most part, like, really trying to keep the element of surprise. And like for you, Andy, like, I'm sure that comes into play, on your western hunts for sure, and then also I bet on your whitetail hunts, like trying to keep that element of surprise and not letting those deer know that you're hunting them in there.
Yeah, I mean that's everything. With the whitetail stuff, I've been real successful on the whitetail side. That's been my bread and butter, obviously. But I've come to be real efficient. I'm not one of those guys that has a family farm, that has awesome hunting. I've always hunted like, the cheap seats, when you buy tickets to a game and you get stuck way in the back behind the pillar, the spot nobody wants to sit. Those are the spots that I hunt. It's stuff that I've been able to knock on some doors and get some free permission, public land. So it's always been a grind, but the reason I've been able to be successful on them is because I'm very thorough with my scouting, extremely thorough. And I locate, on the whitetail side anyway, a few bucks that I want to chase, the caliber that I'm looking for. And then it really is, like you said, keeping that element of surprise, not going in there too much, not letting them know they're being hunted, and moving in when that time is right. And sometimes on these kind of like, I don't know, pieces of ground or whatever that aren't really great whitetail hunting, they might only use a part of that at a certain time of year. And, it's my job to learn when that is. Sometimes with these whitetails, it's like, maybe they're traveling through there, just through a back corner of it. They're on this private ground and they're cutting through right here on a spot where I can hunt on their way to here. Or whitetails, big time, have like different ranges throughout the season. So they might spend their early season here in a bachelor group, then they break up and they might move here. They kind of all separate, and then they might move here and be there in the kind of beginning and middle of October. And then they might relocate to a whole completely different area to rut. And, sometimes you can kind of follow these trends on a certain animal that you're trying to get. And then that's when, that's your window, so I can access here. This is where he ruts. He's not even in here from October 1st through, October 20th. But come October 25th, October 31st, he's in here, and he's in here for like a 7-day window. And boom, that's when I'm in there hunting that deer. So I've kind of been able to be successful in some aspects just by kind of recognizing those little micro patterns and being able to capitalize on them. But if I was in there pounding away every day, going in there 3-4 times a week, even if that buck isn't there, if he's there, I'm disrupting him, I'm educating him, I'm decreasing, my chances at him. If he's not there, I'm disrupting all the other deer. Maybe he comes there during the rut because there's a group of does living in there. Well, if I'm in there, constantly hunting, checking cameras, doing all this stuff, I'm disrupting those does. I'm pushing them off pattern out of their beds. And now that's going to, directly affect the buck that I'm after. Or maybe I'm in an area where I'm willing to take any decent buck. But it's these little micro patterns where I've been able to kind of learn and capitalize on. And then on the flip side, like sometimes when I travel, I travel to Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Nebraska, all these different states that I've whitetail hunted in, I don't know what's there. So there it becomes more about if it's a rut hunt, learning, finding those areas, finding those really good rut funnels, and then being able to be persistent and mentally tough enough to put in those long hours, So, I mean, sometimes it's a 13-hour sit dark to dark and a good rut funnel, and you might get your crack on day 3. It's a different type of hunting. It's an ambush style hunting, but that rut whitetail stuff, when you're really limited on parcel size, it's not like out west on public land where you can really roam. A lot of times you have to find that spot, and then you have to have the mental toughness and the persistence to just kind of sit there, maybe perhaps all day. And then on another flip side too, just being able to develop different types of tactics. A lot of guys are just, tree stand hunters hunting over a corn pile or over a food plot, or maybe they're a rut guy and they just sit rut funnels. But I've had great luck with decoys. I've had great luck spot and stalk on whitetails, like all these different things that a lot of guys don't do. I see, I've kind of developed my own style, but then I see guys like, Jared Scheffler, stalking him on the ground with his recurve and using a decoy. And it's like, man, it bothers me to see a guy being so successful with a tactic that I don't feel confident in. It makes me want to learn it. Doesn't make me hate that guy. Like, I admire that guy. I want to learn, I want to have that in my toolbox to become a better hunter. Or, slip hunting is still hunting, with a bow. A lot of guys don't do that. I do it all the time. I have my platform and my saddle kind of in my pack ready to set up in a tree if I come across the right spot, but I'll just slowly work through a bedding area to get some windy conditions or some wet conditions where I can move quietly through the terrain. And I'll just take my bow, and like you said, I just move at like a snail's pace, and my eyes are ever focused on what's in front of me. I'm watching my foot placement, but I'm always looking. I'm looking for an ear, an antler, a horizontal line of a body, and I'm just kind of slipping through the cover. And I've been able to kill deer like that too. And it's a skill, it's a skill of patience and focus. And then boom, you spot one, and you have to stay hidden, and stay invisible. And how am I going to get into a position where I can maybe get a shot at this deer? Can I sneak up behind this big oak tree and get within bow range and shoot him in his bed? Or I might have to recognize, like, hey, I can only get another 20 yards and he's 80 yards up ahead and he's in cover. Like, I got to get to that tree, and then I got to sit and I got to wait and I got to let him make that final move, So it's a cool game. But some of the things you were talking about, like I just jotted a few notes down. I remember my first mule deer hunt out west. It was in Wyoming. I had went out there for an antelope hunt, and I got an antelope, saw some mule deer. So I was like, I'm coming back here. Came back the next year, and we talk about, being super aggressive or kind of knowing when. I was a beginner mule deer hunter, and I read a lot of mule deer books, watched a lot of videos and stuff, just trying to kind of learn as much as I can, studying the animals on video and just seeing, how different guys approach it. And I did see a lot of that spot and stalk where, you'd glass up a buck, kind of let him go to bed, let the sun get high, let the thermals kind of kick in, get the wind right, maybe get some higher winds, you know, kind of midday, and then make your approach. Well, it was the first morning. I mean, it was literally gray light, and I'm on a glassing knob, and I look across canyon and I see two big bucks, and I'm like, wow, you know, like two big muley bucks, my very first morning hunting. And I'm like, man, all right, I'm gonna watch them, you know. And I'm watching them. It's getting lighter, and I'm glassing, and it's like both of them are shooters. They're about equal size. This is like, you know, Wyoming kind of front country, kind of foothills of the Bighorn Mountains, considered like I guess more of like a general unit. But they were big deer to me, you know, 150 type deer. And I'm watching them, and I'm like, all right, you know, I'm gonna let them bed down. And the more I look at it, there's like this big rim that goes around with this kind of like spine ridge. And I'm like, they were feeding like right under that spine. And, you know, I'm across canyon from them, so I'm kind of in view. I mean, they could see me if I was like moving around big time, but I'm kind of blended in next to some rocks. And I'm like, I think I can get over there. You know, I think I can get over there right now and get a shot. And the way the wind was blowing, it's kind of blowing like this, and they're here. So I was like, you know, but I'd have to approach, you know, on the backside of the rim. The wind's going to be bad. And I was like, if I run as fast as I can and get around, I think I can get a shot at them now while they're up feeding. And, you know, you talk about your running and your fitness and just that confidence that it gives you kind of out west. Like, I didn't even hesitate, you know, if I'm being honest, probably a large portion of the population wouldn't have been able to do that. I grabbed my bow. I slowly snuck backwards out of view so that they wouldn't see movement. As soon as I got behind a rock, dude, I started booking it. And I took a big wide arc because I wanted to be really, really far, because I had to go upwind of them. So I ran as far as I think I could go where they couldn't win me. You know, there was a big ridge kind of between us. And I did this big arc around, and I'm just, you know, just huffing it. And I didn't know how far it was. It ended up being it was about 3/4 of a mile of the big loop that I did. But I did it all kind of like jogging. And I get to that backside, and I remember the spine ridge had this one point where it kind of went up like this. And I remember they were right behind that big point. So I get on the backside of that, and I find that point. I calm myself. I'm trying to lower my heart rate. I'm like, all right, you know, if they're here, my shot's about to happen. So I just kind of let everything settle. And then I slowly take my boots off, because they were like right under it. And I kind of creep up to the edge, and I peek my eyes over, and they're right there feeding, and they don't have a clue. And I had dreamt about going on a mule deer hunt. Like, I wanted this so bad for so long. I drew back, and I'm a confident shooter. I shoot every day. I'm just like you with the bow. I tinker it to death until it's absolutely perfect. I feel very confident shooting at animals. Yes, I miss, you know, but I feel confident. You know, if I can get in bow range, I feel pretty confident I can make a good shot. And I draw my bow back, and I settle the pin, and I literally was shaking so bad, partly because, you know, the adrenaline, partially from running, but I was so excited that I was about to take a shot at a mule deer. I actually let the bow down. I said no. I was like, no. I let the bow down. You know, he's 28, 30 yards away. I mean, just down. And I just took a deep breath, and they had no idea I was there. You know, I was just behind the lip enough, so like my arrow's gonna just go right over the lip down to them. I draw back again, settle the pin, and it just, you know, it's kind of doing this, and I just let it settle, and it just slows down to just about very little movement, almost nothing. And I was just like, pull, boom, just nailed it perfect. So that was my first mule deer, one of my favorite hunts to this date. But that was one of those situations where it's like, you got a window now, if you can get there now. And you can only get there now if you're in decent shape, if you have the confidence to get over there, being able to get over there without dying, having a heart attack, and then being able to slow things down. Like you said, you get into that final approach and slow things down, start to keep tabs on that heart rate, start lowering that heart rate down, because the things are about to transpire. You're about to get your opportunity. So I'm doing that slow in, slow out, lowering that heart rate, and then getting that opportunity. So if in that case, I mean, yeah, maybe I could have bedded him down and got in on there, but that's tough, man. I've done that too, but that's a tough situation. I just saw that window and I was like, I'm taking it. My instincts kicked in. They told me now's the time, and I went for it. But that was pretty cool.
Dude, the coolest. Man, that's so wild. That is so difficult to do. I love your letdown too. I've definitely let down on animals, but you kind of when it's not right or you're too amped up, and definitely new species like that, I get pretty jacked up where I've got to remember that I've got to settle my pin and execute. Yeah, and we don't know, what traits are going to come into play either. Like your fitness, like you said, there's not a lot of guys that could do that, and you don't know when your fitness is going to come into play.
Yeah.
But it did on that one. I had a Wyoming buck that was similar. I was I'd drawn 2 tags and I had a bunch of time. I hunted Colorado and Wyoming back to back, both high country hunts. My buddy had filled out in Colorado. I had some close calls, didn't get it done, had to go straight to Wyoming, pretty much no days off. And so I was like 14 days into hunting high country mule deer, man. I was burnt, but I was so driven. And we chased some bucks up there, and I was like, day 14, I spotted a buck. And it was one of those deals where you see him a long ways off, and it's like, man, I think I can get to him. I think I can make it. And we called it the 10K buck because I pretty much had to get up around him and run the whole way to get there. I didn't take my pack. It was just my bow. And I remember running all the way around him. And then there is this switch where you have to slow down. I remember coming up over the rise, like where he was feeding in that slide and coming up, and he was still there just feeding right down below me. And I couldn't get any closer, and I had to make a shot. And it was like, same thing as I'm having to calm my breathing and go, okay, we need to make one here, Brian. You need to sit on your shot, sit on your pin, pull. And I remember executing and hitting that buck perfect, and he ran down in the timber. I saw my arrow coming in perfect, and I left him. It was getting dark, and I wasn't sure exactly where the arrow was, and I got back to my buddy that had watched the whole thing through the scope, and he's like, man, I watched him roll down the hill 15 seconds after you hit him. He's laying down there dead. And it was like this great heavy buck that I had 14 days of backcountry in, and it's like it came down to my physical fitness, like that being able to make this run around and confidence in my skill set. And you're right, your instincts almost tell you, like, I can kill this buck. Like, right now is the time. I need to go. I need to make this happen right now. And I had that same feeling on that buck. And learning, when you started talking, you were talking about learning these deer and learning these species. Like, there's so much that goes into knowing the animal that you're hunting, and like learning from that animal and learning his habits and behaviors. And like you're able to kill a lot of these deer by being able to read the terrain they're interacting in, and knowing the deer's habits and where they're moving through, being able to identify rut funnels. Like, this knowledge is key, and our tactics change. Like, a lot of times, I know in the early season, I love to bed a buck down and stalk him in his bed because I know that buck isn't moving. I know I can really take my time and be quiet moving in. But that's not, it doesn't always, it's not 100% successful as well. And as it gets into later season, my tactics will change to where I'm more aggressive and almost want to stalk a mule deer on his feet because either they're disappearing in timber or they're rutting and chasing does, and so they're going to be on their feet most of the day, or there's just a bunch of scenarios that come up. And so my tactics from the beginning of season to the end of season will change just because of the deer's habits and my knowledge of it. Or sometimes my tactics will change because of the habitat I'm hunting. I know,
like I love hunting high country mule deer. In a lot of these western states, it's fairly open where you can bed these bucks and get really good chances. But as I start hunting Montana high country, there's like a lot more cover and a lot more timber. And even though I'm hunting this early season and these bucks have this alpine attitude and they're bachelor herded up and they're feeding a lot, I get in there and all of a sudden I can't bed these bucks down. Like I'll just bed them in a certain patch of timber, but I don't know where they're at inside that timber. And so it turns into this low percentage play to try to stalk them in their beds because they disappear from me. And so like this creative thinking is rewarded, like being able to identify these situations and adjust your tactics for them. And so when these bucks bed in this timber, I know that when I'm hunting Montana, like I got to try to kill this buck when he's up on his feet. Morning isn't always the best time, but I love this afternoon, evening. And so I start to go, okay, so he's bedded in that timber. I don't want to go into that timber and blow him out or try to still hunt it, which still hunting is a great tactic, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like I really work on my still hunting skill set, especially for elk or like when I'm hunting axis deer, where I really need to be able to still hunt through country, but I like to still hunt when they're still on their feet in these morning hours or these afternoon, evening hours when they're up and moving, more so than when they're bedded down. When they're bedded down, a lot of times it's like a 50-50. They're going to pick me out before I pick them out, or maybe vice versa, but I just see this as a low percentage chance. So like these bucks in this Montana high country, I'll see them disappear into a block of timber, and now my strategy changes. I'm not trying to kill that buck in his bed. I'm trying to move in and give myself a place where I can see him come out in the afternoon, or I can ambush him and be sitting on the meadow I think he's going to come feeding out in, have the wind right, and then have him walk out. And so this change of tactics, it's like, we have this skill set, but we can't go in convinced we're going to do one thing. Like we have to listen to our instincts and we have to adjust on the fly with our tactics to match, the animals that we're hunting and also the habitat that we're hunting, and try to adapt to that habitat. And I think that's really where we start to see consistent success, is where we start to adapt those tactics to the terrain and the animals that we're hunting. And then pretty soon it just seems to come together. That plan seems to come together, but there's so much strategy involved in it, and it is like this evolution and learning from our mistakes, and we get better, and then you just get better at like really listening to your gut and your instincts. Like when you have that feeling like you did on those bucks, like you're looking at those bucks and you're like, man, they're close to that rim, and man, that wind is pretty good on that rim. I think I can kill that buck off that rim, but I've got to go now. Like my time is running, like my time is limited with this situation and with this opportunity. And so you recognize it and it's like, oh, this is my chance. I need to go now and try to make this happen. And it doesn't work out 100% of the time, but I think when you adjust to the animals and the terrain and you really listen to your instincts, you just give yourself a way better chance at success.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why, comparative like to you, like I'm a beginning Western hunter. Yeah. I've been going out there for, 5, 6, 7 years, and hunted, we've killed some, a handful of antelope, handful of mule deer. But I'm still in that, learning phase, it's super, super exciting to me. Just like when I first started whitetail hunting, those first 10 years, it's like, you're calling your buddies every day. You're talking to your buddies about this and that, and what you saw and what you learned. And it's like this really exciting phase of hunting where you're growing and you're learning together. Well, that's where I'm at right now, with the West. I think hunting, Michigan whitetail is an extremely, difficult thing for mature deer. It's a very pressured area, very high competition, very few mature deer. And I truly believe it's been a great, like training ground for not only whitetail hunting in other states. Often when I go to another state, it comes very, not easy. I don't want to say easy, but it becomes easier to me to get on animals because I've had to grow and learn in some of the toughest conditions. but it's even served me well out west because I have that discipline and I have that attention to detail. So I've been able to be successful, on some decent animals, some pretty good animals. But I'm in that phase still of just like pure excitement and pure learning. And yeah, I'm going on my instincts, and I found that, hey, my instincts in whitetail hunting, and because I've tried to be good at spot and stalk whitetail and still hunting whitetail with a bow and all these different tactics, it has translated into a shorter learning curve on some of these western critters. But man, I love what you said about you just never know what you're going to encounter, and every little stalk and every little hunt is different, and it can be so different, much different than a lot of these whitetail hunts, and I'm just in love with that. I'm testing skills that maybe weren't, maybe I didn't even realize that I needed to develop as a bow hunter, but I'm testing those skills against antelope, spot and stalk antelope, like so hard, right? Or, mule deer in the high country, or kind of the mid country, or even the plains and the prairies. They all have their challenges, and it's just every time I go out there, it's just a whole brand new adventure that I'm just completely in awe of. Is testing all these different skills and instincts that I've never had to test, and I'm just in that phase, man, where I'm just in love and just so excited, and I feel my heart getting pulled out there like 24 hours a day, and I just want to experience more. But I wanted to tell you about this one other mule deer hunt real quick, because it's kind of like the total opposite of that Wyoming buck, but this one's super cool because it was a really technical stalk. It was one of those things, like I told you earlier, where I was observing everything, and I saw this little tiny sliver that, maybe, just maybe, if I do everything right, maybe I can get an arrow at this deer. And perhaps the smart play would have been to sit back and wait, but in this case, it worked out for me. But I just wanted to test myself. I'm like, God, a really good hunter could do that. Brian Barney could do that. Someone that's a really good mule deer hunter could do that. And I just wanted to be able to do it, even though the odds seemed pretty slim. But so I was glassing from this knob, and I saw this was in mid to late October, right around October 25th, somewhere in there. But I see a group of 2 bucks with a big group of does, a big herd of does, and they're kind of working off this high ground. This is kind of like in kind of prairie land, breaky country, little coulees and stuff like that. So not high country at all or anything, but I'm watching these, they kind of move through the landscape, and I'm on an adjacent knob glassing like across canyon, and I'm watching them. It's a big group, so I'm like, oh, this is going to be tough to beat all these eyes. Well, they drop down into this canyon, and they're kind of feeding, and the buck beds down. The 2 bucks bed down, and then the does bed about, 50, 60 yards from them. I think there's like 6 or 7 does. And, these are the types of things that like a beginner guy like me picks up from guys like you, like that first bed, that they bed down, and then often they'll get up and relocate. So they bed down, and they're in a great spot. They're actually in a decent spot, because where the does had bedded, they were further enough away and kind of around this little knob where they weren't, I felt like I could maybe get in there, but I was like, the route I would have had to take to get all the way around this canyon and come over the top of them, it was a long ways. And I was like, I'm just worried they won't be there. So I'm going to sit and wait and let the sun get higher and just kind of see if they move. Well, it wasn't 20, 30 minutes later, they get up, they start milling around, and they start moving. I'm like, thank God I didn't go, and that was another one of those situations where there was a lot of similarities to that Wyoming hunt, where I could have booked it around. And if I would have done it in this case, they wouldn't have been there. Like I would have peeked over and like, okay, now where are they? Now I'm at a major disadvantage. So like, that instinct played in there, even as a beginner mule deer hunter. But it was like some of the information that I've heard from and read from more experienced guys. So I'm watching, and all the deer get up and they kind of move around. The does kind of bed around. They bed just below the cedar thicket. The sun's starting to get high now. It's casting a little shade, so they bed in there. And then these bucks, they come through this canyon and they go into this little tiny coulee, this little crack that almost looks like nothing. And they just kind of disappear in there. And it's like I don't know how deep it is, maybe 70, 90 yards or whatever, but it's just one of those little cracks that just narrows down to nothing. And I was like, there's nowhere else to go. That's where they're going to be, and that was creating some shade. So now I had to think about, like, I got these 2 bucks bedded here, and I got these does bedded here probably about 90 yards away. And the wind is kind of blowing like almost from those bucks to the does. And I'm playing all this out in my mind. I'm like, man, that's tough. Like, for me to get in where I would need to get a shot on these bucks, my wind is going to be almost blowing to these does, and that could blow the whole thing. And, I'm kind of looking at the app here, and it's like, it's like 9 mile an hour wind. It's supposed to pick up to 13 at 1. And I'm like thinking, okay, the sun's going to be here. All right, that's good. If I wait till the sun's high midday, it's going to be right in my back. So that's good. That's going to kind of hide my approach a little bit. Then I'm looking down at that coulee, and there's a big tree, and then there's like this little tiny cedar tree. And I was like, gosh, I wonder if I can get to that tree, man, I'm going to be within bow range. So I'm playing this all out in my head. I'm just like, God, I just don't know about getting all the way around and coming in between the bucks and the does. I was like, they're so tight. And I was like, man, I think I can do it. If I'm really, really slow and I cut the wind just enough, and I only get to this point because the wind's blowing like this. If I get to there, it's just going to miss those does. And I was just like, I'm going for it. I'm going for it. Yeah, it's hard. It's difficult. It looks almost impossible, but not impossible. And so I did. I pulled out, backed out, made the long hike around. I was in no rush, so I'm not sprinting. I'm not rushing. I'm like, I'm hiking. This is where they're going to be. I feel confident. And I'm kind of going through this the whole hike around. And I come in from that other side. I sit there for another 45 minutes. I'm letting that wind pick up, letting that sun get a little higher. And I was like, all right, here we go. So I start making my approach, and I always carry milkweed on me, to test the wind. I have a puffer too. Puffer is like a quick check right in front of your face, but that milkweed, I love it because, you throw a few of those in the air, and you can watch that milkweed go for 70, 80, 100 yards. So I can see how it works through the terrain. So I'm testing it, and I'm watching where it's going in relation to those does. I'm like, okay, I'm good. And I'm slowly making my way, and I get within about 100 yards, maybe 90, 80 yards of where this little coulee is. And they're down in the bottom of it deep. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take my boots off because it was dry out there. The grass, every little step, even though I'm moving slow, it's like, that little crunchy noise. So I take my boots off, and I'm just slowly, quietly making my approach. All the while I'm testing that milkweed, and it's blowing like towards the does, but it's missing. I'm like 50 yards to the right. I was like, I think I'm good, and I'm slowly, and then I get behind that cedar, and I get down on all fours, and then I just start crawling. And I want to just, as I approach, I'm getting to the edge, and I'm every inch I make forward, I'm glassing that line of like where my eyes can peek over the edge. And every little step I make forward, I can see just a little more. So I'm clearing every little detail with my eyes, just looking for an antler tip or an ear or anything. So I'm moving slow, just as slow as I can. And I keep doing that. I keep inching up, and I'm keeping that cedar behind, or I'm staying behind that cedar just in case, I don't know if they're like bedded on that side looking up or bedded on this side looking that way. I don't know yet. And all of a sudden, I get up far enough, and I just see a little white antler tip. And I'm like, all right, he's right there, and he's 30 some yards, and he's bedded on my side of the coulee, like back facing me. It couldn't have been a better situation. So get this, the wind is hitting me in the face. He's bedded in the shade facing the wind, and I got the sun behind me, so like a lot of things just, in my favor now. So even if he does get up, like there's a blinding sun, like in line with me, in his vision. So I get to that cedar tree and I range his antlers now. And now I'm in there and he's 24 yards. And I'm like, all right, man. He has no idea I'm here. And I'm sitting there and I'm kind of behind the tree and I'm just sitting on my butt. And this is one of those times where it's like, I don't have a shot in this bed. Could I stand up and maybe slip one down? Maybe, but I didn't feel confident. He had no idea I was there. A good strong wind. It's not swirling. It's not shifting. I feel like I'm good. And I was like, I'm gonna sit here all day. I don't care if I have to sit here all day until that deer stands up. I'm gonna do whatever it takes. I mean, the sun's beating down on you, and you're just like, I'm just thinking like, man, this is just, it's torture, and I love it. Like, I love putting myself through those just hard things, or it's just like, I mean, it's miserable, but you just know, like, when you do it, you're tougher and you're a better hunter for it. And I'm sitting there, and lucky, it didn't take long, but that other buck stands up, and he would have been one of my biggest mule deer, great deer, but he wasn't at the same caliber as this other one. He gets up and he just walks broadside down, back further into the coulee. And basically what was happening, the sun was getting high. It started hitting his body, and he starts moving back into that crack, and he gets down in the shade. And I'm like, all right. So I just kind of like look up a little, and I can see that deer's rack, and he's all in the shade, but half of his rack is in the sun, So I'm like, okay, a little more time. That sun's going to keep creeping up, and it's going to get on him, and he's going to get hot, and he's going to go back in there where that other buck was. And sure enough, man, it was like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 minutes more or whatever. But that sun, now I can see his whole rack's glowing. Like I've actually posted a picture of that on Instagram, but like I'm right there above that buck, and his rack's in the sun and his body's in the shade. And it wasn't long after that he got hot, and he stands up, and I was actually like, I'm focused on the deer, and every once in a while I'm just kind of like, there's like a leaf here or something, and just in case I have to make a quick move or something, like, up to my knees, like I'm moving these little leaves, just picking a leaf up and moving it out, just anything that I could like brush up against and make a noise. Just everything right real close to my body. And then I lift my eyes up, and he's up. And I'm like, I like shook like this. I was like so startled because I didn't see him stand up, and I was like, okay. And I'm like, everything about that wanted me to rush. Like, he's up, shoot, But I was like, he's not even looking at me. Like, he has no clue I'm here. And he's just standing there, and he takes a turd, and he's just like, has no care in the world, and he just slowly starts walking back into that coulee more where the shade was. And I drew back and came to full draw, dropped that pin on him, and I was just like, pull, boom, and just drilled him. Perfect double lung shot. He took off, didn't get far, but I just love that hunt because it was such a technical stalk, at least for me. But I thought it was a cool example because it was kind of the opposite of that Wyoming hunt. Same type of scenario, where I could have booked it around, but there it wasn't the right call. I would have missed my opportunity there.
Man, that is so beautiful. I love hearing stories like that, and it is so tough to stay still and wait for that buck to stand and then not rush your shot. It takes it takes everything inside you to keep your calm and to make that happen. But it's those calls we make, and that strategy comes into play. But that is like the stalks that we get for mule deer like that, and to get in those positions and have that wind in our face and be waiting for that buck to stand, man, that's what I live for. That is so crazy cool. And yeah, the two mule deer stalks that you mentioned are totally opposite. So there isn't like a one size fits all. It's like you have to have that strategy and that creative thinking, and then have this set of tools where you can make different approaches, where sometimes you're aggressive and you need to move now, and sometimes you're so patient, like the hands of the clock, and moving each individual leaf just in case you have to come up to your knees and shoot, man. That's beautiful. And I think like this whole conversation, I've just realized that, that
you are a student of the game. You enjoy learning. You enjoy evolving. And I'm just the same way. And even though I've been hunting these animals out west for longer, I'm just still learning and absorbing information, and I'm still so passionate about it, and it's so exciting and thrilling to me. And it's one of the reasons that I fell in love with bow hunting. It's so extremely difficult, and it forces you to continue to learn. And even as efficient as I've got, I can still find myself on a tough hunt, wanting to be more efficient or wanting to make these better decisions, wanting to move slower, and I still make mistakes, and I'm still learning from it. Like I'm still learning and still getting better at this hunting game, and I think I always will be. Like it's something that I get good at, but something that I don't know that I'll ever master. As like every situation is different, every habitat is different, and you're right. You bring like that whitetail base of yours gave you such a great skill set that now you're able to transpose into Western game, where if you just started Western game fresh and didn't have all this whitetail experience, all this experience in different states and hunting different deer, your learning curve would be a way slower, you wouldn't be able to gain that success as quick as you have. But man, you're just a student of the game. It's like, what a fun conversation with you to like get on the podcast and to be able to talk back and forth. Like I know, I'll take information from this podcast that'll help make me better, be able to implement it in my own game plan, and to hear other successful hunters like talk about their keys to success and their keys to developing their instincts and their base and being able to have this creative thinking. Man, it just it's so exciting. It's we're the lucky ones that have found our passion in something that we truly love, and it challenges us to be better each and every day, and it requires that you live this bow hunting 365 lifestyle. Like it's the only way that we can give ourselves a chance at success is constantly working and getting better, and that's with our scouting and with our shooting and with our physical fitness and then with these instincts that we talked about the majority of the podcast. And when you put all that together, it makes you pretty efficient in the mountains, man. So but Andy, what an absolute enjoyable conversation, man. Thanks so much for coming on and joining me on the podcast. It's just it's really fun to hear your journey.
Hey, it's been an honor, man. I've been a long time listener and admirer of you, and I love, out of all the bow hunters out there, I mean, you could be one of the cockiest ones and feel like you have it figured out. And I just love that you don't have that. And you're, like you said, a student of the game, constantly evolving and striving to get better, even after all these years and all the success you've had in all these different species. That's the way it should be. And that's awesome. I'm super honored to be on this podcast. I love this podcast. Just love everything about it and the way you go about your hunting and your life. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Well, come back on with me. Let's check in after season. I know you got a big hunting season planned. Yeah, when it gets all said and done and the dust settles, let's get back on and chat about what we learned this season. I'm sure there'll be some lessons learned and hopefully some success along the way.
Absolutely, man. You just say when.
Okay, sounds like a plan. All right, thanks again, Andy.
Yep, see ya.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. Such a fun conversation with Andy. It's the first time I've had him on the podcast, but definitely won't be the last. The guy is a diehard bow hunter and really, really perfecting his skill set and his skills to be effective in a short amount of time. Just made for a great conversation. So, also want to thank our sponsors. Want to thank Stone Glacier. Just great products, great crew, really knowledgeable, really like their sleep systems. I want to thank Matthews. That new Phase 4 is absolutely shooting for me. I'm so pumped with that bow. So I can't wait to show you guys what I can do with a full season with that thing. And if you're in the market, just go check one out and shoot it. See if it's a fit for you. Also want to thank Black Ovis. I want to thank Forever Barnwood. Those guys were great about getting me all the stuff for my house and stuff for houses through Barney Construction. So really good company. If you're thinking about building a house or planning on building a house, make sure to go check out their products. They have a great website at foreverbarnwood.com. Also want to thank Camo Fire and want to thank Eastmans for all their support. Again, the Black Ovis code to save 10% is Elevated10. The promo code for the Mule Deer course is BrianMDC. The promo code for Tag Hub is Brian, and that'll save you a little bit of coin on your next purchases. So with that, man, just did a great backpack trip. The bear season is so far behind here. We have so much snow and so little green grass. But I did do a backpacking trip last weekend where I did a couple days and a bunch of miles. Really had a ton of fun. I didn't see a ton of bear tracks. I did end up seeing a sow and a cub or a couple bears there. Got a quick look at them, and then yeah, couldn't turn up a good boar, but it's a long season, and grass should be growing, man. We got some 70-degree weather. I think it was high 70s yesterday. Went out and got in a run, which felt like a heat run, even though it's, fairly mild compared to summer temperatures, but upper 70s. It's good, man. I finally had the shirt off and able to get in a quick 5 miles, and yeah, man, it's really good. Life has been good here. Just working away, trying to get finished up. Like Barney Construction has been keeping me busy, trying to wrap up a couple of these homes, and then yeah, just been getting my training in. Running's going good, ready to step it up for these summer months and access some of this country that I haven't been able to get to from the snow. So really looking at putting some good miles in, definitely getting my body weight exercises in, my push-ups, my pull-ups, squats, lunges, things of that nature. So training's been going really good. I feel really strong. Definitely shooting my bow every single day, loving that new Phase 4, and got a great setup here at the house, and getting ready to order some new targets too. Ready for a good 3D target. I got a good spot for it. I think it really helps on aiming to be able to aim at a 3D target and not at a dot. So that's important practice here leading into season. And yeah, definitely need to get out and shoot angles and just keep things rolling here. But right now it's bear season and won't be too long, another week or so, and it'll be dang near every evening or every time I get the chance, mixed in between softball games and family and work and everything else I have going. But should be a fun season. There's definitely some good boars around, and it's a good year for it. I love these big snow years, so can't wait to get started on that. And just super excited about this podcast with Dan. Gosh, we've just done some great episodes, which I want to get released to you guys. So I think I'm going to meet at the Eastman's office Monday, Tuesday, and probably get things set up from there and just get it released to you guys and take care of the paperwork later. And I just love releasing podcasts that I record for that time of the year, as the information is so pertinent. And, there's definitely some spring bear stuff in there. Definitely some tag application stuff, so I want to get those released to you guys. But thanks so much, you guys. I really appreciate the support. I appreciate you guys listening in each and every week. The support through social media, as I've been trying hard to release more content, both through the Eastmans Elevated page and my personal page, Brian_Barney. And man, and the support of the podcast, man, this has been amazing. And yeah, I just want to keep it rolling and keep this great information coming to you guys, so you guys can improve at your bow hunting, and I can improve as well, or all hunting for that matter. And man, I'm just stoked. It's going to be a great season. Pretty much, my season's starting to come together. Still waiting for a couple draws to come out, hoping I get lucky on some tags. But season's starting to fill up, and starting to make plans for big adventures and for scouting trips, and stoked for the training, as that's coming good, as I know you guys are in the same headspace as I am. Man, season's coming, and some big adventures are on the horizon, so absolutely can't wait. So thanks you guys for the support. Also, the reviews on iTunes really help out to help introduce the podcast to different people, so I really appreciate those. And man, that's it. better go get some work done here and check in with you guys next week.